I'm so happy you could join me. My name is Pixie. I make videos about the art I make and the books I read. These are my favorite books of 2023 that I read in 2023, not that came out in 2023, because most of them didn't. I'm really excited to talk about all of these. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite reads of this year were. So the year started with a bang, with me just reading the Lord of the Rings trilogy over and over and over again. From January to May, I think I read this on repeat 5 times, so like once a month, something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I love this series. It doesn't need an introduction. I do want to talk about how nice it felt to indulge in rereading. I think because in my life I've been shamed and ridiculed for being too intense about stuff I like and stuff I'm interested in. I felt a bit of shame around like just indulging in something I like that much, to just go back to the beginning when I'm finished with it. But it felt really good to sort of break free of that and just read what I felt like reading, which was Lord of the Rings for 6 months. 5 months. Because in June I was like, okay, it's Pride Month. Maybe I should finish Nona the Ninth. I bought Nona in March and then I started it, and then I was like, I don't want this to end because I don't know when the last book in the series, Alecto the Ninth, is gonna come out. So I want to savor it. In June I got my shit together and I read it and I became re-obsessed. So like honorable mention to the fact that I also reread Gideon and Harrow a couple of times in June and July. I really love The Locked Tomb, if you didn't know already. That's why I have them right here on hand on my couch, in case I need urgently to look something up or just spend some time with my favorite queer idiots. Nona is the 3rd book in a series, so I don't know how much I should say without like spoiling it. I will say, so Gideon is narrated by Gideon, who is a jock forced into a haunted palace with a bunch of nerds trying to solve a murder mystery. She doesn't really care about all the nerd shit. Harrow, the 2nd book, is narrated by a person who doesn't trust their own perceptions of reality, don't trust their senses because they have a mental illness. So we do not know what is real and what isn't. Nona is narrated by a person who has 6 months worth of memories, but an older body, doesn't really know what's going on, is clearly in a post-apocalyptic scenario, but is just happy to be there and like loving her life. So the choice of POV characters for each of these books is just top-notch. It is great. I love the series because I love being like confused and bamboozled when I read a book, if I feel that I can trust the author, that they have like a grand plan. And I definitely trust Tamsin Muir. She knows what she's doing, so I have full faith that Alecto the Ninth, whenever it comes out, is gonna be great and give us a satisfying conclusion. I'm very excited about it. Speaking of confusing gay books, This Is How You Lose the Time War. I finally read it this year and I loved it, as of course I did. We knew I would. It's a poetically written science fiction with sapphic enemies to lovers. Of course I loved it. I will say I wish we had a little bit more time with these characters to let their relationship develop over a bit longer of a time. Like for us, not for them. Because there's like time travel shenanigans, time war. Yeah. Incredibly beautiful book. So glad I read it. So glad I own it. Briefly, A Delicious Life by Nell Stevens. This book represents how I am going to try to consume books in the future. I listened to the audiobook first and I loved it, and so I bought a physical copy that I want to reread and annotate and stuff. Actually, I started with the audiobook and then I switched to the ebook because I read much faster with my eyes, and I was like, I need to keep reading. I need to read more faster. I have this weakness for real person fiction about historical figures, and this novel has two of them. George Sand and Chopin, the composer. I'm sorry I pronounced those names really bad, but yeah, and it's narrated by a teenage ghost who's really horny, and it's both fun and sad, and I just loved it. I don't know if I can explain properly why I loved it so much, which is bad considering what I'm trying to do here with this video. I really loved how the writing style in this was very like tactile and physical in the way it described things, and there's an extra level to that kind of writing in this book specifically because it's narrated by a ghost who doesn't have a physical corporeal body. But I really love that kind of writing, I think, because of the specificity. It feels really poetic, even though it's actually more like concrete than other styles. I really liked it, and I'm gonna reread it and annotate it. And then, if you have been here for Gothtober, you know about these two, Bunny by Mona Awad and Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Slay. Bunny is like a weird, dark academia. Fucked up shit happens. It's great. The Fifth Season is the best dark fantasy I have ever read. It's dark without being gratuitous. It has commentary on real oppression in our world without talking down to the reader. It's just very seamlessly part of the world, so it's not like sometimes when books have political underpinnings, it sometimes like shines through the story in a way that takes you out of the story. N.K. Jemisin does not do that. It is like completely seamlessly part of this universe, completely like engrossing. And I'm very excited to continue the series in 2024. I'm gonna have to put something up on the screen. This is a really old copy of The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. It's a Swedish translation that I found in an antique shop. It was 10 Swedish kroner, which is almost nothing. It was printed in 1906, so I actually mostly listened to this on audio in English. You may know about this book from the impact it had on like food regulation in the United States, but apparently Sinclair's intention was like socialist agitation. He was trying to make the case for socialism, and so that's why I wanted to read it, obviously. But it's about mistreatment of immigrant workers, especially, but also workers in general, at a meatpacking plant in Chicago. Going into it, I expected it to be kind of a slow to read and like a bit of an effort, which I don't mind putting in some effort to read a classic book. But after like a chapter or two, I was completely engrossed and I found it really easy to read. It was super readable, even though it's over 100 years old. So if you're looking for like a less intimidating classic, I would recommend this. The topics are heavy. Like, these people are having a bad, miserable time almost the whole way through. We get some hope at the end. This main guy gets radicalized. But he also, like, on the way, we see him be both a really good person and do some really bad things. And we also see him like join a union and then go to being a strikebreaker, a scab. I really appreciated this nuanced way of approaching a human being in the oppression of class society and in the class struggle, because I think it represents really well how the development of class consciousness is not like a steady graph upwards. It goes like this, and it can go backwards and then leap forwards again. And that is true for a lot of types of development, but especially relevant for class consciousness in this case. It's not a piece of like flat propaganda. It's a really well-written novel, but with good characterization, and yeah, layers, nuance. So I really, really liked it. And lastly, I gave this 4 stars, but I keep thinking about it, so I may change my rating to 5. I just recently, on Christmas Eve, read The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I heard about this book years ago, and so this is the Swedish translation. I got it because I saw it for cheap in a charity shop, like with a lot of books on my physical TBR. I'm so glad I finally read it. I was uncomfortable the entire time. I did not feel good, but I also couldn't look away. So basically it's about a woman who has been very quiet and unassuming, and then she feels that she can't eat meat anymore, and her husband freaks out, her brother-in-law freaks out, her sister freaks out. She is the main character of this novel, right? She never gets her own point of view. It is narrated by these 3 different people around her. She does not get her own say in her own book. And that choice, that choice says so much. Like, I've never heard silence quite this loud. I am obsessed. But yeah, it is very uncomfortable to read. I like to have a bad time when I'm reading, I guess. So those were some of the books I enjoyed the most in 2023. I'm excited for the reading I plan to do in 2024. Look out for that video. Until next time, take care of yourself. Okay, bye.